The humid Virginia air hung heavy over the compound as the olive-drab government sedan rolled to a stop at the main security checkpoint. The woman in the back seat lowered her window, handing a laminated identification card to the Marine stationed behind the bulletproof glass. He scanned it, glanced at her face, then did a double-take. The photo on the card showed her with slightly longer hair, but the eyes were the same, steely, focused, and utterly devoid of fear. He handed it back with a nod, and the heavy steel gates slid open. Inside the vehicle, Lieutenant Commander Sarah Jenkins felt the familiar tightness in her chest. It wasn't anxiety. It was the pressure of anticipation. She had been summoned here, to this nondescript building nestled deep within a joint forces installation, by a direct order from a 3-star general. But the message had been cryptic. Report to Admin Building 7-0900. Dress uniform. Matter of national security. She had been given no details, no context, and no option to decline. As she stepped out of the car, the humid air pressed against her starched white uniform. The gold insignia on her collar, the eagle, anchor, and trident, gleamed in the morning sun. She had earned that trident, the symbol of a Navy SEAL, through 6 months of hell known as Bud/S training, followed by another year of grueling qualification. She had broken bones, suffered hypothermia, and pushed her body so far past its limits that she had discovered new reservoirs of strength she never knew existed. She was one of the few, the very few. The building was quiet, the kind of institutional silence that feels heavy and expectant. But her low heels clicked against the polished linoleum as she made her way to the conference room at the end of the hall. Through the frosted glass door, she could see the silhouettes of several men already seated. She didn't knock. She opened the door, stepped inside, and stood at attention. "Lieutenant Commander Jenkins reporting as ordered, sir." The room was dominated by a long mahogany table. At the head sat Major General Thorne, a man whose reputation for ruthless efficiency was matched only by his distaste for anyone who challenged the traditional order of the military. Flanking him were 2 colonels she didn't recognize, and a civilian in an expensive suit who looked profoundly uncomfortable. Thorne didn't invite her to sit. He simply stared at her for a long, uncomfortable moment, and his eyes traveling from her perfectly polished shoes to the trident on her chest, then back to her face. "At ease, Commander," he said, though his tone suggested she should do anything but relax. "We've reviewed your file. It's impressive. For a woman." Sarah felt a flicker of irritation, but kept her face neutral. She had heard variations of that phrase her entire career. For a woman. As if her gender was a handicap she had miraculously overcome to achieve the same standards as her male counterparts. "I've been in this man's Navy for 32 years, Thorne continued, leaning back in his chair. "I've seen a lot of changes. Some good, some unnecessary. The integration of Special Operations Forces was a political decision, not a tactical one. But we're here to deal with the present. Not the past." He gestured to a folder on the table. "We have a situation. A high-value target, a terrorist facilitator known as the Ghost, has been located in a border region that's politically volatile. We can't send in a conventional team. We can't use air power. It has to be a covert snatch and grab. 1 person in and out, no trace." Sarah's mind immediately began racing through the tactical implications, the terrain, the exfiltration routes, the intelligence requirements. This was exactly the kind of mission she had trained for. "We believe you are the best person for this operation," Thorne said, and for a moment Sarah felt a surge of validation. "Your linguistic skills, your background in the region, your physical capabilities." He paused, exchanging a glance with one of the colonels. However, the colonel on his right interjected, "This mission requires a very specific, let's say, presentation. The Ghost is known to be paranoid. He trusts no one, but he has a weakness, a predictable male weakness." Sarah's eyes narrowed slightly. What kind of weakness, sir? The civilian in the suit finally spoke, his voice quiet and clinical. He favors Western women, specifically those in positions of authority. There's a psychological component to it, a need to dominate and humiliate. Our behavioral analysts believe the only way to get close enough to him, to get inside his security perimeter, is to present a target he can't resist. A lone, unarmed American woman. The pieces clicked into place in Sarah's mind, and the realization hit her like a physical blow. They weren't here to send her in as a SEAL, and they were here to send her in as bait. "You want me to go in undercover," she said, her voice carefully controlled. "As a civilian, unarmed." "Precisely," the civilian nodded, seemingly relieved she understood. "You'll wear a wire of CRs. And once you're within the kill zone, we'll have a QRF, a quick reaction force, on standby to extract you and neutralize the target. It's a standard honey trap operation." "A honey trap," Sarah repeated, the words tasting like ash in her mouth. "You want a Navy SEAL, a commissioned officer with 13 years of special operations experience, to play the role of a damsel in distress so you can lure a terrorist into a trap." Thorne's face hardened. "Watch your tone, Commander. This mission has been approved at the highest levels. Your country is asking you to do this. We didn't bring you here to debate the semantics of the operation." For the next 30 minutes, they laid out the plan in excruciating detail. She would be stripped of her rank, her identity, her very essence as a warrior. They would plant a fake backstory, a disillusioned aid worker, perhaps, or a reckless journalist. She would be inserted into a hostile city alone, with nothing but a tracking device sewn into her clothing, and the hope that the extraction team would reach her before the target's guards grew bored of playing with their new toy. Sarah listened to it all, her jaw tight, her hands clasped behind her back. She asked pointed questions about the intelligence, the extraction protocols, the backup plans. Each answer was vaguer than the last, and the civilian kept talking about acceptable risks and worst-case scenarios. The colonels looked at their watches. Thorne looked at her like she was a tool he wasn't sure would do the job. Finally, Thorne stood up, signaling that the briefing was over. "You'll move into a secure holding facility tonight. No contact with your unit, your family, or anyone else. We'll need to brief you on the cover story and run a few simulations. Dismissed." Sarah didn't move. "Sir, I request permission to speak freely." Thorne's eyes narrowed. He wasn't used to his subordinates asking for permission to challenge him. "Granted. With all due respect, sir, this plan is flawed. It relies on too many variables. The extraction window is too narrow. The QRF is positioned too far out. I've run similar ops before. This isn't a mission. It's a suicide pact wrapped in a political statement." The room went silent. The civilian looked at the floor. The colonels shifted uncomfortably. "Are you refusing a direct order, Commander?" Thorne's voice was dangerously low. "I am questioning the tactical viability of the operation, as is my duty as a senior enlisted leader and a commissioned officer. If you want the ghost, I can lead a team in. I can put together a 4-man element that can be on the ground and inside his compound in under 12 hours. We can do this the right way, the SEAL way. Not like this. Not with me playing dress-up while real warriors sit in a helicopter waiting for a green light." Thorne slammed his hand on the table, the sound echoing off the walls like a gunshot. "You think you can lecture me on tactics? I've forgotten more about combat than you'll ever know. This isn't about what's tactically pure, Commander. This is about what's politically expedient. The Pentagon wants a female face on this operation. They want the headlines. Female SEAL single-handedly catches terrorist mastermind. It's a PR dream. And you're going to deliver it, or I'll have your trident and your commission faster than you can blink." There it was. The truth laid bare. It wasn't about the mission's success. It was about the narrative. They wanted to use her, not for her skills, but for her symbolism. "I understand, sir," Sarah said, her voice eerily calm. "May I be excused to prepare for the holding facility?" Thorne, still red-faced, waved his hand dismissively. "Get out of my sight!" Sarah turned on her heel and walked out of the room. Oh, but she didn't go to the holding facility. She didn't go to her temporary quarters. She walked straight to her car, got in, and drove to the one place on the base where she knew she could find answers: the admin office of the Naval Special Warfare Command. The admin building was a flurry of organized chaos. Clerks shuffled papers, officers tapped on keyboards, and the air was thick with the smell of coffee and desperation. Sarah strode past the front desk, ignoring the young petty officer who called after her, and headed directly for the office of Captain Miller, the head of the SEAL community's administrative branch. Captain Miller was a thin, bespectacled man with the demeanor of an accountant rather than a warrior. He looked up in surprise as Sarah burst through his door without knocking. "Commander Jenkins? Oh, what's the meaning of this? You're not authorized to be here." Sarah closed the door behind her. "Captain, I need you to look something up for me. A mission order. It came down from Major General Thorne's office today. It has my name on it." Miller blinked. I can't just share classified mission details with you, Commander. You know the protocol." "Sir, with all due respect, I just came from a briefing where I was ordered to prostitute myself for a photo op. I'm not asking for details about the target. I'm asking for the authorization code. I want to know who signed off on using a SEAL as a honey trap." Miller's face paled. He turned to his computer terminal, his fingers hesitating over the keyboard. After a moment, he typed in a series of commands, his eyes scanning the screen. When he found what he was looking for, and he sat back in his chair, his expression a mixture of shock and something that looked like shame. "There's no mission order, Commander." Sarah's heart skipped a beat. "What do you mean?" "There's a memo. A single-page memorandum from the Office of the Secretary of Defense, routed through the Joint Chiefs. It's not an operation. It's a proposal, a feasibility study. It suggests using a female special operations officer in a honeypot certification exercise to test the viability of gender-integrated undercover protocols. General Thorne requested that you be detailed to his command to participate in this exercise." "It's a test?" Sarah's voice was incredulous. "They want to put me in a combat zone alone as bait for a test?" "It appears that way," Miller said quietly. "It's a white paper, Commander. It's not a real mission. All right, they're going to simulate it. They're going to put you through the motions, probably in a training environment, and then write a report about how a woman could theoretically be used in such a role. The extraction team, the QRF, the target, it's all simulated. They were going to lie to you, make you believe it was real, to get an accurate psychological reading." Sarah leaned against the doorframe, a wave of dizziness washing over her. The audacity of it was breathtaking. They were willing to put her through psychological torture, to strip her of her dignity and her identity, not for a real mission, but for a study, to prove a point, to gather data. "How far up does this go?" she asked, her voice a whisper. Miller shook his head. "I can't say, but General Thorne is enthusiastic about the project. He's been vocal about his opposition to women in combat roles. If he can produce a study showing that the only viable use for a female SEAL is as a sexual decoy, it would be a powerful tool for his side of the argument." It was a setup, an elaborate, cruel, professional setup. They weren't just trying to humiliate her, they were trying to destroy the very concept of a female SEAL. They wanted her to fail, to break, to prove that women didn't belong. Sarah straightened up. The dizziness passed. In its place, a cold, hard rage settled into her bones. "Thank you, Captain," she said, her voice steady. "I appreciate your candor." "Commander,